My wife's first love died. My wife, who had always insisted on being child-free, secretly used his frozen embryo to get pregnant. She even posted a picture on Facebook to commemorate him. True love means ensuring a part of you remains in this world, even after you're gone. Everyone was waiting to see how I, her husband, would react. But I just left a simple, understated comment. If your feelings are that strong, you might as well be his widow. After posting that, I turned off my phone and booked the next international flight out. It wasn't until I was walking the streets of London that I turned my phone back on. A call from Isabella came through immediately. Where did you run off to? Why weren't you answering your phone? The moment I picked up, she launched into a barrage of accusations. My tone was flat. I'm out of the country. My phone was off. That sentence seemed to be all it took to set her off. Don't you know I'm pregnant? How could you just run off to another country by yourself? Do you have any sense of responsibility at all? I suddenly found it laughable. She was always so quick to blame me, even when the child in her belly wasn't even mine. But I couldn't be bothered to argue with her. I just said coolly, let's get a divorce when I get back. Then, not wanting to hear her response, I hung up. I lit a cigarette, standing on a London street corner, as the smoke and my emotions drifted away. For years, I had done my best to be a good husband, to carefully nurture our marriage. In any argument, regardless if it was right or wrong, I was always the first to back down and endure her endless criticism. The slightest, most casual display of affection from her was enough to make me happy. In our marriage, she enjoyed all the privileges of being the one who was loved, squandering my affection without a second thought. As the cigarette burned to its end, so did the last wisp of feeling I had for her. Davis, a clear voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Emily Jones, a friend from my college days. This trip to London was her idea. We found a coffee shop and sat down. Emily got straight to the point. Davis, have you thought any more about what we discussed? We had been in the same program in college. After graduation, she went abroad for her master's and eventually landed a great job at a Fortune 500 company. She had reached out because her company had an opening for a head of North American operations that was a perfect match for my skills. I had turned her down several times before, wanting to prioritize my marriage and family. Time, however, had proven just how foolish that choice was. So this time, I didn't hesitate. I made up my mind. I'll take the opportunity. Emily's face lit up. That's wonderful, Davis. I'm so glad. I'll set it up right away. The CEO will want to interview you personally. Don't be nervous, she added. With your qualifications, you'll be fine. The moment I landed back in the States, I got a text from Isabella. She said she wanted to pick me up at the airport herself. In 7 years of marriage, she had never once done that. Usually, she'd be out shopping and would call me, expecting me to drop everything and show up instantly. I had no intention of letting her pick me up. I deleted the message and walked out of the airport, hailing a cab to take me straight home. Once I was home, I started working on my resume. Even though I was more than qualified for the position and had Emily's recommendation, I wanted to be thoroughly prepared. Years of hard work had given me a wealth of experience and qualifications. As I finished updating my resume, I realized that it had gotten dark outside. I glanced at my phone and saw several missed calls from Isabella. Just then, I heard a key in the lock and the door swung open. Isabella stormed in, slamming her car keys on the table in front of me. Do you have any idea how long I waited at the airport? 3 whole hours. Oh, I forgot to tell you I was already back, I said nonchalantly. A few hours of waiting was nothing compared to everything I'd put up with over the years. You, she glared, her face twisting with anger. I went to the airport to get you myself while pregnant. I was already doing you a favor. Don't push it. I gave her a cool glance. Is it even mine? Isabella froze for a second, then frowned at me. Does it matter if it's yours? We agreed to be child-free, but now you'll have a child to look after you when you're old. Isn't that a good thing? Her logic was always twisted. It was as if her getting pregnant was some kind of gift to me, even though I wasn't the father. She seemed to forget that being child-free was her decision in the first place. I had compromised back then out of love for her, but over time, she had come to take my compromises for granted. You're right, it doesn't matter. Let's go to the courthouse tomorrow and file for divorce. After that, You can have kids with whoever you want. I sent the finished resume to Emily, then closed my laptop and got ready for bed. My words seemed to have finally pushed her over the edge. She pointed a finger at me, her voice like ice. You said it, Davis Miller. Don't you dare regret this. I slept soundly that night and was at the courthouse early the next morning. I waited until noon, but Isabella never showed up. I'd run out of patience, so I called a lawyer and had them start drafting the divorce papers. Just then, my phone rang. It was the hospital. Mr. Miller, this is Chicago General. Your wife is having an emergency. We need you to come in right away. Ever since the embryo transfer, Isabella had been at the hospital for checkups constantly, terrified of the slightest complication. I didn't want to go, but I needed her to sign the divorce papers, so I agreed. When I got to the hospital, I saw Isabella lying in a bed. A doctor stopped me outside her room, looking displeased. Look, as her husband, you should know that you've never once come with her to a prenatal appointment. Don't you realize how physically demanding an IVF pregnancy is? I looked at the doctor and said evenly, what if she's carrying another man's child? Another man's? The doctor froze, staring at me. After a moment, his expression softened with sympathy. He patted my shoulder and sighed. I went into the room and saw that Isabella's parents were there with her. Honey, Isabella said the moment she saw me, her face a mask of distress. The doctor says I'm not doing well. I've been so anxious lately, and it could be affecting the baby. What did that have to do with me? I showed no emotion, just nodding. Oh, well, make sure you eat and sleep well. Hey, Isabella's father, Mr. Johnson, slammed his hand on the bed frame and stood up, glaring at me. What kind of life have you given my daughter? She marries you and has to go to her own prenatal appointments alone. What kind of man are you? I shot him a sideways glance. You're a man. Why don't you tell your wife to go have a baby with someone else? Mr. Johnson looked like he was about to explode, rolling up his sleeves to come at me. The doctor quickly intervened, reminding him they were in a hospital and that he'd call security. Only then did he back down, fuming. Isabella's mother, Mrs. Johnson, came over to me, her expression earnest. Davis, Isabella is still your wife. No matter whose child she's carrying, don't you think you bear some of the responsibility in this? Don't you dare try to guilt-trip me. I was done being polite. My only responsibility here is to not send your entire family to go join the baby's father 6 feet under. With that, I pulled out the divorce papers and tossed them onto the bed in front of Isabella. Sign them. After this, I don't care how you choose to mourn him. Davis Miller, are you really going to be this cruel? Isabella pushed the papers aside, her expression a mix of emotions. I shook my head. I'm not the one being cruel. You're the one who has treated our 7-year marriage like a joke from the very beginning. Right after we got married, Isabella was always doting on her first love, Ethan Clark. I'll never forget the time a few years ago when I had a severe stomach bug. I was at home in so much pain, I was close to passing out. I used the last of my strength to call her, asking her to take me to the hospital. But she said she was with Ethan for his birthday and told me not to bother her. She said I should just take some medicine. If Emily hadn't called an ambulance for me all the way from London, I might have actually died from the pain that day. I had put up with one thing after another, but this pregnancy was the final straw. I had no patience left for her. I didn't cheat on you. I never slept with Ethan. I used his frozen embryo to get pregnant. You can't even handle a little thing like that. Isabella genuinely didn't see anything wrong with her actions. In her mind, as long as they hadn't physically slept together, it wasn't cheating. I said coldly, when you were with me, you insisted on being child-free. You said not having kids was your one firm rule. How is it that the moment Ethan dies, that rule just disappears? Isabella's face flushed and she stammered, unable to come up with anything but a weak defense. Ethan's already dead. Why are you being so petty? Even though I'm carrying his child, you're the one I love. I actually laughed. I had completely lost the will to argue with her anymore. I picked up the divorce papers and placed it back on the bed. Sign them or don't. It's up to you. If you don't want to do this amicably, we can settle it in court. With that, I turned and walked out of the room. That night, I called a few friends and we went out for drinks. When they heard I was divorcing Isabella, not a single one of them was surprised. They all congratulated me on finally escaping a bad situation. After a few rounds, I was starting to feel it. Through the haze, I thought I saw Emily walking toward me. Egged on by my friends, she came and sat down beside me. "What are you doing back here?" I asked. Emily looked concerned. "I heard about the divorce and got on the next flight back to check on you. Are you okay?" I smiled and shook my head, raising my glass. "I've never been better." Seeing that I seemed to be holding up, Emily relaxed and clinked her glass against mine. Just then, my phone rang again. It was Isabella. I declined the call. A moment later, a text came through. "Honey, where are you? I'll come get you." I had no idea what game she was playing now. I didn't reply and ended up just turning my phone off. But 10 minutes later, Isabella showed up at the bar. When she saw me drinking, Isabella's expression instinctively hardened. She had always hated it when I drank. Even for work events I couldn't get out of, if I came home smelling of alcohol, it was a cardinal sin in her eyes. This time, however, she seemed to hold it in. She walked over to me, forcing a gentle tone. "Honey, let's go home, okay?" Her sudden attempt to be nice was unsettling. I was long past the point where a scrap of affection from her could make my day. "Can't you see I'm with my friends?" I shot her an annoyed look and went back to my conversation. To my surprise, Isabella didn't argue. She just nodded, told me not to drink too much, and then found a seat by herself off to the side. It looked like she was planning to wait until I was ready to leave. I was genuinely shocked. In the past, I wouldn't have been surprised if she'd flipped the table. But it didn't change how I felt. I gave her a quick glance and then ignored her. My friends, however, were exchanging confused looks. One of them leaned in and whispered, "Davis, looks like she's scared of losing you. Is she turning over a new leaf?" I hadn't told them about the pregnancy and didn't want to get into it. "Forget her," I said, waving it off. "Let's drink." Emily glanced over at Isabella, but didn't say anything. When the night was over, I said goodbye to Emily and my friends. Isabella, who had been waiting the whole time, came over and took my arm. "Honey, you've had a lot to drink. I'll make you some tea when we get home." Now that we were alone, I had no interest in playing along. I pulled my arm away. "Isabella, aren't you tired of this act? Since you couldn't let Ethan go, why are you still clinging to me?" Her eyes welled up with tears, her voice cracking. "Honey, I never meant to betray you. I only decided to have Ethan's baby because he died so suddenly. As his friend, I just wanted to give him a legacy. That's all. You didn't betray me. You just got pregnant with another man's child. Isabella, do you hear how ridiculous you sound?" I pulled out a cigarette and lit it, taking a long drag. "You should have thought about the consequences when you made your choice. Just sign the papers. Let's stop wasting each other's time." "No, please." Pain was etched on her face. "There's a mandatory waiting period for divorce. We're still legally married during that time." I nodded. "Fine. I'll come get the signed papers after your waiting period is over." She grabbed my arm again, her voice pleading. "Honey, can we please just go home? I promise I'll be better. I'll be a good wife. Save it for your next husband." I pulled my arm free again, hailed a cab, and left. In the rearview mirror, I saw Isabella sink to the sidewalk, burying her head in her knees. She looked utterly helpless and alone, but she had brought all of this on herself. After that night, I didn't go back to the house. I checked into a hotel for an extended stay, planning to live there until the divorce was final to avoid seeing Isabella. That evening, Emily told me the CEO of her company was very impressed with my resume and wanted to interview me online right away. I was eager to leave this city and all its bad memories behind, so I borrowed a laptop from the hotel for the video call. It was less of an interview and more of a formality. My resume spoke for itself. We mostly discussed salary and benefits. As a top Fortune 500 company, they were generous, and for the head of North American operations role, they offered me a 7-figure salary. I accepted the offer on the spot. They gave me a month to handle my transition at my current job and finalize the divorce. The next morning, I went to my office to give my notice. My boss and colleagues were sad to see me go, but when they heard where I was headed, they all congratulated me on a major career move. After my exit paperwork was filed, my boss organized a farewell dinner. After the meal, No one was ready to call in night, and someone suggested going out for karaoke. All eyes turned to me. They all knew I was a henpecked husband who would surely get an earful for being out late. But this time I just smiled and nodded. Sound great. Let's make a night of it. Everyone cheered when I agreed, joking that I was finally standing up for myself. I just smiled. At the karaoke bar, my colleagues were belting out songs while I scrolled aimlessly on my phone. Emily had just sent me a congratulatory message, and I replied, promising to take her to dinner soon. A moment later, a notification popped up on my phone. It was an update from Ethan Clark's Twitter account. Curious, I opened it. It was a post from Ethan's parents. They had found out about Isabella's pregnancy and were overjoyed that their late son would have a child. They publicly thanked Isabella on Twitter and said they would treat her like their own daughter-in-law from now on. They also posted an old photo of Isabella and Ethan. In the picture, their cheeks were pressed together, their smiles radiant. They looked like the perfect couple. Isabella had commented below their post, "I will take good care of my child with Ethan, and from now on, I will treat you both as my own parents." The story was starting to get some attention online, with people praising Isabella's selfless act of love. But no one seemed to mention the fact that she was married. In the past, seeing something like this would have made me shake with anger. I would have wanted to drive straight to her and confront her. This time, however, I felt nothing. I simply replied to her comment with a single word, "Congratulations." Then I went back to messaging with Emily. A moment later, my phone rang. It was Isabella. "What did you mean by congratulations? You're just jealous, aren't you?" I only wrote that comment because of all the public attention. Surely you can understand that. I felt nothing listening to her explanation. "It means what it says," I said flatly. "I'm still out with my colleagues. I have to go." I was about to hang up when she quickly said, "Wait, what will it take for you to call off the divorce?" That question stumped me because giving up on the divorce had never crossed my mind. Our marriage had been over the moment she decided to get pregnant. Seeing my silence, Isabella seemed to make a desperate decision. "What if I terminate the pregnancy?" "Don't bother. Even if you did, we could never go back to the way things were," I said without a moment's hesitation. Besides, I knew she would never actually do it. Ethan was too important to her. Getting rid of the baby would mean letting go of him completely. And now that it was becoming a public story, the backlash she'd face for terminating the pregnancy would be immense. She was only saying it to test me, to see if there was any part of me that still cared. After a long silence, Isabella finally said, "Can you come home tonight? I want to talk." I refused immediately. "There's nothing to talk about other than our divorce." "Please," she begged. "I know I was wrong. Before we divorce, at least give me a chance to apologize, please." She sounded sincere, her voice thick with tears. I wasn't sure if she truly understood what she'd done, but I wanted to get the divorce over with, so after a moment's thought, I agreed. "Fine." That one cold word seemed to be enough to make her happy. "I'll be waiting." After we hung up, I couldn't focus on the party anymore. I made my excuses and left. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I took a cab to the Chicago Riverwalk. I sat on a bench, lit a cigarette, and found myself lost in thought. This was where Isabella and I had gotten engaged. It was New Year's Eve. I had spent a small fortune on a private fireworks display over the river when I proposed. Our love felt so pure back then, like we were the only two people in the world. But then one day, she heard that Ethan was back in the country, and from that moment on, everything changed. The fireworks that lit up the sky 7 years ago had finally, at long last, burned out. I put out my cigarette, stood up, and said goodbye to that place and to my past. When I got home and opened the door, I was met with the smell of a home-cooked meal. Isabella was in the kitchen, wearing an apron and bustling about. When she saw me, she smiled and wiped her hands. "You're here. Come wash up. I made all your favorites." I was surprised as she brought the dishes to the table. It had been so long since she'd cooked for me that I'd almost forgotten she knew how. When we were first married, she was a wonderful cook and would often have a full dinner waiting for me when I got home from work. But that all stopped after Ethan came back in her life. "I already ate," I said. I got straight to the point. "You wanted to talk, so let's talk." Isabella took off her apron, tied back her long hair, and pulled me over to the table to sit down. I haven't cooked for you in so long. At least have a little. I looked at the spread on the table. It all looked delicious. I could tell she had put a lot of effort into it. But wasn't it a little too late for all this effort? Isabella got me a plate and silverware, then carefully served me some food and pushed the plate toward me. The aroma filled the air, and for a second, memories came flooding back. The past and present blurred together. She used to serve me just like this, smiling as she told me, "Honey, you go out and build your career, and I'll be here at home, your biggest supporter." I was so full of happiness back then. I would gently tap her on the nose and say, "Okay, and I'll work hard to give you a lifetime of happiness." For the next 7 years, I worked tirelessly to keep that promise. I often worked late into the night, taking almost no vacation time. But I never again came home to a table full of food waiting for me. My thoughts snapped back to the present. I looked down at the plate in front of me and gently pushed it away. "I don't eat cilantro." Isabella didn't seem to notice, smiling as she served me more. "Oh, but it's delicious. You have to try it." I shook my head. "You must have forgotten. I'm allergic to cilantro." She really hadn't cooked for me in so long that she'd forgotten something so basic. Her hand froze midair. She looked at me, embarrassed. "Oh, I'm so sorry." I cut her off, my voice still calm. "You don't have to do all this. It's not going to change anything." "No, it can change things. I've thought it all through." Isabella was getting agitated. "You're just upset that I was willing to have a baby for Ethan, but not for you, right?" "Well, I'm willing now, honey. After this baby is born, I'll have one for you. Let's not get a divorce, okay?" As she spoke, she threw herself at me and started to unbutton her blouse. I pushed her away and stood up, looking at her with a complicated mix of feelings. "You have to understand, the moment you went through with that embryo transfer, there was no going back for us." "Honey, I was wrong." Isabella burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. I just wanted to leave a piece of Ethan behind. You always went along with everything I wanted. I thought you would go along with this too." It was true. I used to let her have her way with everything. For our 3rd anniversary, I booked her favorite restaurant, baked a cake from scratch, and bought the gift she'd been wanting for months. I waited at the restaurant all night, but she never showed up. I ate alone at the restaurant she'd always wanted to try. I shared our anniversary cake with the waitstaff. They said it was sweet, but I couldn't taste a thing. The next day, she explained that Ethan had been fired from his job, and she'd spent the entire day and night consoling him. My feelings had never been the priority. Isabella was still crying, her shoulders shaking as if she were heartbroken. There was a time I couldn't stand to see her cry. The moment a tear fell, it felt like a knife in my chest. I would have done anything to hold her and make it better. But I understand now that some people will never change. I pulled a tissue from a box and set it in front of her. "Here, if there's nothing else, I'm leaving." "No, don't go." She suddenly hugged me from behind. "Stay with me, just for tonight, please." Her body was warm against my back, and I could smell the faint, familiar scent of her perfume, a scent I once adored. But now I just pulled her hand away and walked out the door without a backward glance. The next evening, I met Emily for dinner to thank her. Without her, I never would have gotten this incredible opportunity. "Davis, I knew you'd get it," Emily said, beaming at me as she raised her glass for a toast. I smiled and touched my glass to hers. "Well, I'll be counting on you to show me the ropes over there." "Of course," she said. "You always helped me out back in college. Now we can look out for each other." After she said it, she seemed to realize how it might have sounded, and a light blush crept up her cheeks. I didn't make a big deal of it, just smiled. Emily then asked, "So, what are your plans for the next few weeks?" She knew I was handling the divorce, but was too polite to ask about it directly. I had no reason to hide anything from her. "I'm planning to sell the house, buy my parents a new place back home, and then I don't think I'll be coming back to Chicago again." Emily nodded. "That makes sense. I have a few friends in real estate. I could put you in touch if you like." "That would be a great help. Thank you." We had a few more drinks until we were both a little flushed, and then we decided to call a night. As we left the restaurant, we saw a crowd gathered in the plaza outside. Someone had arranged a large heart on the ground, made of candles. I wasn't interested in gawking, but Emily was curious and pulled me closer. "Davis," she whispered, "isn't that your wife?" Emily pointed to the woman standing in the middle of the candlelit heart, her face a picture of shock. I looked and my stomach dropped. It was Isabella. She was wearing a wedding dress, standing inside the heart and holding a bouquet of flowers. "Hello, everyone," she said into a microphone connected to a small speaker. "I'm here today to declare my love for the most wonderful man I know and to apologize to him. I made a lot of mistakes," she continued, her voice projecting over the crowd. "And recently, I made a terrible one. But going through all of this has made me realize that he is, and always has been, the only one I truly love. By the time I realized it, it was too late. I had broken his heart, and now he wants to divorce me. So, I've come here today, and I'm asking all of you to be my witnesses. I want to win him back. I want to propose to him just like he once proposed to me, and ask him for a second chance." The crowd was eating it up, and some people started cheering for her, touched by her grand gesture. "Davis, what are you going to do?" Emily asked, looking at me. I frowned. "This is ridiculous. Let's go." But just as I turned to leave, Isabella spotted me in the crowd and shouted my name. "Davis Miller." At the sound of my name, the crowd parted, creating a path between us. Isabella walked toward me, a hopeful smile on her face. "Did you hear what I said?" I nodded. She held the bouquet out to me. "Can you forgive me? If you do, I'll go to the hospital tomorrow and terminate the pregnancy. I realize now that Ethan is gone. You're the only one who matters. I want to have your baby." I shook my head, a cold smile on my face. "There's no need for that. You've already betrayed me. Don't betray him now, too. You made your choice. Be his widow. Raise his child." As I spoke, I felt a drop of rain on my cheek. Without any warning, the sky had opened up. The crowd of onlookers quickly scattered, leaving just me, Isabella, and Emily, who was waiting for me nearby. We stood there in the downpour, getting soaked to the bone. The white wedding dress was instantly stained with mud and water, losing its purity. It felt like a metaphor for our love. The moment it was tainted, the sacred meaning we once gave it was gone forever. "Davis, is there really no hope for us?" Isabella asked, staring at me, rain washing away her carefully applied makeup. I couldn't tell if the streaks on her face were from the rain or her tears. I just shook my head. "It's too late for that. Have Ethan's baby. Find a man who loves you and start over." She gave a bitter laugh. "No one will ever love me the way you did. I'm the one who threw it all away." She sank to the ground, the hem of her dress pooling in the muddy water around her. For a second, through the curtain of rain, I saw her as she was on our wedding day, standing before me in her gown. The memory of how happy we were then only made the present moment feel heavier. I couldn't deny how much we had loved each other once, but she had still betrayed me. I fell silent. I didn't say another word to her. I just turned to Emily, who was still standing there in the rain. "Let's go." Emily nodded, gave Isabella one last look, and then fell in step beside me. From the moment I turned away, I never looked back. I don't know what she did after I left, whether she felt regret or grief. It had nothing to do with me anymore. Our love had ended the moment she decided to carry another man's child, and this rain had just washed away whatever was left. A week before I was scheduled to leave for London, I received some unexpected news. Isabella had a miscarriage. I couldn't say if I was happy or sad to hear it, but I did feel a pang of sympathy for her. That sympathy didn't mean I still had feelings for her. Rather, it meant I had truly, completely moved on. I needed to finalize the divorce before I left the country, so I decided to see Isabella one last time. Emily offered to come with me, and I agreed. The same doctor from before met us. He glanced at Emily, then looked at me with a weary sigh. "It's not my place to comment on you young people's relationships, but you have to take care of your health." He told me that after being out in the rain, Isabella had developed a high fever. The stress on her body was too much, and she lost the baby. She didn't even realize it had happened until after the fever broke. The doctor also told me that Isabella's health was already fragile, and between the recent stress and the complications from the miscarriage, she was now infertile. I felt a strange mix of emotions hearing that. In the end, she had lost everything. And in a tragic way, she had gotten her original wish to be child-free. I thanked the doctor and went into her room. Isabella was lying in bed, looking even paler and more fragile than before. She was staring blankly at the ceiling, her eyes empty. Still, she noticed me when I walked in. A flicker of light came into her eyes, but it vanished when she saw Emily standing beside me. Her parents were there again, and when her father saw me, he flew into a rage. "You have a nerve to show your face here. This is all your fault. My daughter lost the baby because of you. Now she can never have children. You've ruined her life." As always, her father ignored his own daughter's role in the situation and placed all the blame squarely on me. I didn't want to argue. To my surprise, it was Isabella who spoke up. "Dad, it's not his fault. I did this to myself." "Honey, how can you defend him after everything that's happened?" Her mother shot me a venomous look. Isabella just shook her head and pulled a manila envelope from her bag. "Here are the divorce papers," she said, handing it to me. "I've already signed them. I've also moved all my things out of the house. Here's the key." I took the envelope. She finally understood, but it was far too late. The rest of the process was simple. Soon enough, we were officially divorced. Isabella stared at the decree for a long time, then gave a hollow laugh. "It feels like a dream. I really thought that no matter what I did, you would never leave me. But now," her voice broke and she started to sob. I sighed. "Let's not talk about the past. Respect in a relationship has to go both ways. No one is indispensable. I hope you remember that with the next person." She didn't reply, and in that silence, we went our separate ways. I knew we would probably never find true closure. Even as we moved on to find happiness elsewhere, this would always be a thorn in the memory of an otherwise quiet life. It would fade with time, but it would never disappear completely. A week later, I moved to London for my new job. My work required me to travel back to the States frequently on business, but I never went back to Chicago. The house that held 7 years of our memories was sold. Perhaps it would become the backdrop for another couple's love story, a place where they would grow old together, just as I had once hoped for us. And so on quiet, lonely nights, I would inevitably think of that thorn in my heart. But whenever that happened, Emily was always there. She never said much, just kept me company in silence. And in that comfortable silence, a bond grew between us. And then one day, Emily and I got married. Our married life is happy, so happy that the sting of that old thorn has begun to fade. I believe that one day, it will be gone from my life completely. I never heard any news about Isabella again. She was like a dramatic chapter in my life that, once written, was finished forever. Maybe she left Chicago, too, and found her own happiness somewhere else in the world. Or maybe she remained trapped in her guilt, living out the rest of her days in a haze of regret. As for me, perhaps one morning far in the future, I might suddenly think of her name. But that's all it will be. We left shadows on each other's lives, but even the darkest shadows eventually fade in the morning sun. And that is my story.